This is the Power Zone Sports Podcast.
Well, the NBA postseason has had its share of great moments already, that is for certain. In the Eastern Conference Final, the Boston Celtics have a 2-game lead over the Indiana Pacers with their 126-110 victory. Jaylen Brown scored 40 points for the Celtics, and Tyrese Halliburton was scoring until he went down with an injury. And in the Western Conference, this game just wrapped up, and the Mavericks have a 2-game lead over the Timberwolves. Luka Doncic hits a big three-point shot to win the game with 2 seconds left on the clock. And the Mavs ended up winning the game by a final score of 109-108 to take a 2-game lead in the Western Conference Finals. We just talked about the Mavericks and how they've done so far. So the Mavericks are in the Western Conference Finals. They are 2 games away from their first return trip to the NBA Finals since 2011. And the Dallas Stars are trying to win their first Stanley Cup final since 1999. So it's a very interesting time in Dallas for sports. But of course, the team that has not made it to an NFC Championship game in that same time frame has obviously been the Dallas Cowboys. And why have the Cowboys been so stagnant? The Cowboys have been a victim of bad luck. They've been a victim of a fan base which the We Dem Boys aspect of Cowboys Nation that always emphasizes, oh, we're going to the Super Bowl this year. And the expectation from the fans is that the Cowboys are going to the Super Bowl every single year. I wish that the Cowboys organization still had that same expectation that they would win the Super Bowl year after year after year. The New York Yankees still have that expectation that any year they do not win the World Series is a failure. And that's what makes the Yankees unique, because anytime Derek Jeter talks about a year where they made the postseason and didn't make the World Series as a failure, that strikes a lot of fans of other teams as a strange remark, especially if your team finished 30 games below 500 or something like that. So somewhere the Cowboys have lost the plot, and they've got to get back to it. It's a big final year coming for Dak Prescott. Will the Cowboys decide to hold on to him? Is obviously the main question. He's going to be looking at a big contract yet again if he decides to stick around, even though Dak Prescott has said recently that he doesn't play for money, he plays for the love of the game. And Dak Prescott led the NFL in touchdown passes last season. But the Cowboys have had, like I said, they've had some meltdowns in January, some meltdowns that would probably only rival Chernobyl. But getting beyond that, it's going to be an interesting year. Cowboys seem like they're going to have a running back by committee. But back to the main premise. Why have the Cowboys not made it to a conference championship since 1995? Not won a Super Bowl 30. One reason, Jimmy Johnson, the Cowboys head coach, when they won, when they became a dynasty, 92, 93, and then he was fired unceremoniously, and the Cowboys, of course, Barry Switzer did win the Cowboys' last Super Bowl as head coach, but that's been something that the Cowboys have failed to get back to that point. Salary cap is another big thing. I mean, talent now goes wherever the most money will pay them, and the Cowboys have been pretty stingy lately in the free agency market. Names that I thought Cowboys could have went out and could have gotten for a reasonable price. The Cowboys have said no, we don't want them. Probably the most easy example I can think of right now from this offseason would have been Derrick Henry when the Cowboys had an opening at running back after Tony Pollard left and went to Tennessee to the Titans. But the Cowboys decided to bring back Ezekiel Elliott, and it will now be a running back by committee. Ezekiel Elliott will now be wearing number 15. So if you were hoping to get a Ezekiel Elliott jersey at a good deal, while he hangs on to number 21, well, that's not necessarily going to be the case. And apparently, Trey Lance will change his number to number 19. So jersey numbers changing all over Dallas. Trey Lance looks like he's going to be now quarterback, the backup quarterback for the Cowboys, and so it'll be interesting to see that. Cowboys are probably going to groom him to take over the team if Dak walks. I can't see them. I can't see Jerry Jones drafting a quarterback next year. I really can't, unless they just absolutely the bottom falls out. And if the bottom fell out of the Cowboys, that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing either, because the Cowboys they've been overdue to hit bottom for a while. But I don't think this team will necessarily be the team that hits bottom. The Cowboys, this team is too talented to hit bottom on paper. It's never been a question with the Cowboys about talent. It's always been about the other things with the Cowboys. This team, of course, they've had some defections. They lost Dalton Schultz with Jake Ferguson. Should become the tight end. The Cowboys think they're going to get out of him this season. I'm expecting big things from Jake Ferguson. He's no Jason Witten, and Jason Witten will be well on his way to the Hall of Fame. But will the Cowboys, the tight end issues will be solved by Jake Ferguson. I think he proved himself when he was needed to make the receptions. He made them, and he's a pretty good block in the run game as well. So that is pretty good. One where the Cowboys, another issue where they don't have any problems. It's in the kicking department. Their kicker, he was very very good last season. So they didn't have the problem of a kicker with the yips in January like they had last season when they in the playoffs when they beat Tampa Bay. And so it's interesting. Areas of the Cowboys, you think they'd have problems, they haven't had them, and then new areas like the defensive line or the entire defense completely collapsing against Green Bay is a completely different story with this Cowboys team. Will Jerry Jones get to hoist another Lombardi trophy? I do not know if that is the case, but the Cowboys, kind of like a New York Yankees fan, I was like, oh well, 27 rings. But the Cowboys still have 5 Super Bowl rings. Obviously, the Patriots and the Steelers have more than them. The 49ers still also are stuck at 5 Super Bowl victories as a franchise. So it's going to be interesting. Of course, the Cowboys are America's team, not necessarily because everyone in America loves the Cowboys, because everyone in America has an opinion on them and either likes to watch them win or enjoys watching them lose. And so it'll be interesting that first game to see if this team has what it takes this season. But like I said, this team is good enough. They should repeat as NFC's champions. But a first place team is given a first place schedule by the NFL. And that's why it's been very hard for someone in the East to repeat. There hasn't been a repeat champion in the NFC East since 2000. So we'll find out how this season will turn out. Few, just a few months away, and it'll be interesting to see that. Training camp is coming up. Cowboys are going to go to Oxnard for their training camp, and then they'll play a couple preseason games, and then the team will start to take shape. 75 players cut down to 53 players. Of course, we'll know, some of them are going to be locked in, barring something spectacular like Dak Prescott will be the starting quarterback of the Cowboys, things like that. But it'll be interesting to see how how this turns out. Because if this doesn't pan out this year, if the Cowboys do not win the Super Bowl this year, everyone but Jerry Jones is probably going to be fired. Mike McCarthy will probably be fired. Others will probably be fired as well.